Welcome back to the channel. This is Simon Cromer, and today we are doing part 2 on this full restoration of this Axopar 37 center console. Now guys, if you haven't checked out part 1, be sure to check out part 1 before coming to part 2. That will help make this video make a little bit more sense. So in part 1 we covered the correction, we covered wet sanding, buffing, polishing, and in part 2 today we're covering the polymer sealant application, Brightwork, we're covering vinyl and plastic. So yes, technically you can watch these videos separately and you'll get a lot out of each video, but if you want to really get that full experience from start to finish and really understand how to restore a boat, make sure that you check out both of these parts. Now guys, typically this type of information, this is going to be a 1-hour masterclass again, so provide me your full attention, get your notebooks out, take notes, really absorb all this information in. And yeah, like I said, typically this would be behind a paywall, but today instead I'm offering all this value to you for free. So really take advantage of it and really absorb as much as you can. Now all the products that I use today will be linked in the description below, so those will likely take you over to 1%detail.com, where you can find the best detailing products all in one location for your convenience. And guys, if you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button before we get going. Be sure to leave the video a like in the left corner of your screen. And with that said, let's get started. What do we have going on today? So guys, we are starting off the video with the polymer sealant application. Now I did not show this part in the video, but we did give the boat a really good wash down with Dawn dish soap and degreaser on the non-skid. So this is going to help clean up all of the boat from when we were detailing, because when you're buffing, when you're polishing, that's going to create dust. It's going to create a lot of stuff all over the boat, so you're going to want to give the boat a good rinse down and wash prior to doing the protection. So I didn't show this, but we actually end up washing the boat 2 times before we get to the finish of the project. So we go ahead and wash the boat initially before we get started on the boat, before we do the wet sanding, and then we wash the boat again after all the corrections. So the reason we wash with Dawn dish soap with degreaser is because this is really going to remove all those oils, all those polishes out of the gel coat, so that you have a nice clean surface that is ready to accept a polymer sealant into the pores. So we really want to get all those oils out so that the polymer sealant has a really good bond and application with the gel coat. So that's what we're doing today, and that's what we did do, which I did not show in the video, but let's go ahead and talk about the polymer sealant application. Today we are using Jescar Ultralock, which is one of the best polymer sealants on the market to date. And what you're getting with Jescar Ultralock is you're getting oxidation being blacked out for a long period of time. So you're getting about 6 months, 8 months of oxidation being blacked out of your boat, which is excellent. So that's why I use the product. Also with Ultralock, you've got the SiO2 infused into the polymer versus just Jescar PowerLock, which is just the polymer sealant version. So if you get the Ultralock, you've got SiO2, which is ceramic technology, so you're getting extra water beads, you're getting more shine, you're getting more UV inhibitors, and all of these things lead to longer protection. Also, it's super easy to work with, very easy to put on the boat, very easy to wipe off. So overall, I do think this is probably the best polymer sealant in terms of all aspects. So if you want to follow the same process, get the same results that we're getting, you're going to want to go ahead and pick up that product. When it comes to machines, we have the Rupes LHR15, which is the orbital polisher, the 5-inch backing plate from Rupes. When I really look at a orbital polisher for doing a application of a polymer, I really want a 5-inch because this is going to allow me to get more versatility once we get into the top side. However, this is a little bit pricey of a machine. It's about $420. So if you are a detailer, this is the perfect machine to get because you get a lot of versatility. Number one is Rupes, so you already know it's got a really good warranty on it. These machines are durable, they last long, and they're always effective, they always work. So along with that, you're getting, like I said, a good versatility. So if you work on cars, you can use this for paint correction. It's one of the best paint correction machines today on the market. And yeah, you can use it for sanding if you want to. You can use it for polymer sealants on boats. So a lot of versatility at that $420 price point. Now, if you are a boat owner, I do understand that you might not want to spend that much, and that's okay because you can still get the same results with the different machines. So when we talk about a quality machine for doing a polymer sealant, you've got the Griot Garage G9, which you can use for sanding and for your polymer, or the Max Shine, which you can also use for sanding or a polymer sealant. However, those are 6-inch backing plates, so you will have to kind of align with the right pad. So you will have to increase from a 5-inch to a 6-inch pad, which, you know, when you get into that top side, you won't be able to maybe get all the parts of the boat that you'd want to get with the actual polisher. You have to use a hand applicator to get those areas, which is absolutely okay, and we will talk more about that once we get into the top side. But all in all, those are the 3 options. Pick one of those machines and you'll be ready to go. So you've got Jescar Ultralock and you've got your machine picked out, whether you've got the Rupes LHR 15, you've got the Griot's Garage G9 or the Max Shine. Now you are ready to go, but we have to pick out the right pads. So since I use the Rupes, I love to use the Rupes pads for waxing. So what we've got today is we've got the Rupes Fine Finishing Pad. It's the white pad, it's a soft pad, and it's going to make the application really easy because we're not trying to do any correction, so we don't need a really durable, a really hard pad. You never want to use Lake Country Gray or Lake Country Orange to wax. That's just too heavy of a pad. You want a softer pad that can kind of absorb that polymer sealant so that as you're working down the boat, that will then transfer on to the surface. So a softer pad is better for waxing. It just makes the application a lot easier. When it comes to applying a polymer sealant, the only pads I will use are Rupes because they do come in 5-inch and 6-inch. So no matter what machine you have, you can always do the 5-inch with the 5-inch backing plate, or you can use the 6-inch pad for the 6-inch backing plate. So it always works out perfect, and they are just simply the best pads, the highest quality pads for this purpose. Now that you're all set, you've got Jescar Ultralock, you've got your machine, you've got your pad. Now it really comes down to the application. So when we are applying this to the surface, we want to make sure we're going in horizontal and vertical rotations. So I typically do, especially when I'm on the hull. When I'm on the hull, I'll do 1 vertical pass, 1 horizontal pass, and I'll move on. So it's very simple. As long as you're covering the surface, that's all you need to do, and you can move on to the next section. So it's not like we're trying to polish or we're trying to buff something out. All we're doing is making sure that product covers the whole surface that we're working on, and then we can move on to the next section. So you're going to notice a polymer sealant is going to be much faster to apply than when you're polishing or when you're buffing. It's just a super easy process, and it's really pretty simple to follow. Now you may have the question, do I do a decon wipe, also known as an alcohol wipe, before I do the polymer sealant application? And the answer to that is no, because I am washing the boat with Dawn dish soap with the greaser. That is going to make sure that we're eliminating any of those oils, any of those polishes out of the pores. Now ceramic coating is a little bit different. If you've got smears, if you've got swirls, anything you've got on the surface is going to show with a ceramic coating. So yes, for a ceramic coating, you will want to do an alcohol wipe. You will want to go all the way, but with a polymer sealant, guys, that's just overkill. It's not necessary because when you're applying that polymer sealant with the foam pad, that's going to take out any swirls, anything that you may have had on the surface. Plus, you've already got the surface clean, you've already got the oils removed, and a polymer sealant just doesn't work the same way as a ceramic. So this is absolutely okay. The only time you need to do an alcohol or a decon wipe is if you're in an indoor facility and you don't have the ability to wash your boat. So anytime you finish buffing or polishing, you'll want to do the decon wipe before polymer sealant application if you're in an indoor facility and you don't have the ability to wash your boat. But if you're outside, you can wash the boat. That is the best way to go about it. Then you're good to go. Apply that polymer sealant. It's going to be perfect. Now that we finished the hull, we jumped up on the top side, guys. We're going to run this sidewall, and yeah, it's a fairly easy process. But one thing that I do like to do, especially when I get up to the top side, is I like to carry a red foam applicator so that any spots I cannot get with the machine, I can get with a hand applicator. So that's really important when you're doing protection, because you want to make sure that you get everything protected on the boat. So any little spots, any little crevices that your machine is not going to be able to fit into, you want to run that with a hand applicator. I think that's really important, and that really shows if you're a detailer that you're getting all the spots, you're making sure everything's protected, and it's just the right way to do it. When it comes to wiping off the polymer sealant, here is my advice to you. So I always used to say 30 minutes, but here's the reality. Since I'm trying to provide a little extra information today, I'm going to explain exactly how this works. So if you guys did a really good job in the correction, you did a good job wet sanding, buffing, polishing, all that oxidation is out of the surface, you've got a really good gloss, you've got that gloss meter at like a 90, you guys can put that polymer sealant on the boat and you can work that whole boat. You can wait it can be 2 hours, 3 hours. You can come back and you can wipe it off and you're going to be good to go. However, if you're a little unsure of, did I remove all the oxidation? What's it looking like on the gloss mirror? If I'm at an 80 or maybe even an 85, I might want to get that Polymer sealant off the boat quicker. So that doesn't mean that you can't protect the boat. It just means if you let it on there for a super long time, it's going to kind of dry into the oxidation and it's going to be hard to wipe off. So if you've got a really good surface, you can coat the whole boat, come back, wipe it off, you're going to be fine. If you're kind of are unsure, kind of like we did on the hard top, I'd want to make sure that I wipe that primer off the hard top within 30 minutes. So that's kind of my advice to you guys. If you guys are unsure, 30 minutes is going to be great, and you're not ever going to run into any problems with that regardless of the surface. So 30 minutes, great. If you guys feel like you're really knocked it out of the park, let it stand there longer because it's going to get a little bit of a better bond. It's going to have more shine and it's going to last a little longer. So just my advice to you guys. Now when it comes down to temperature, sunlight, does that get important? It does actually. So when you've got like, if it's 100 degrees, right? If you're in Arizona or, maybe even if you're in Florida in the summer, like it does come down to humidity, temperature. That stuff is going to dry that primer on there faster. So just keep in mind that it will dry faster. If you're in a hot place versus a cold temperature. With cold temperatures, you always want to let that primer sit on there for a few hours because it's just going to take a longer time to bond and really work the way that it's supposed to give you that protection. As we work back to the transom of the boat, you guys can see how we're doing this. So again, I just really want to make sure you guys have got this pattern down. It's simple, it's horizontal, it's vertical. Just make sure you're covering the whole surface and you should be good to go. Now, when it comes down to speed, we're going to be running the Rupes at a speed 4. So a lot of your DAs, your random orbitals, 4 is going to be a good speed. You don't want it too fast, you don't want it too slow. You want it right in the middle for this application. So that's going to be perfect. Run that machine in the middle. 4 on the Rupes is great, and that's going to be the correct speed to get the best results. When it comes to wiping off the Polymer sealant, we want to do a 2-towel method, and it is really important that you have ultra plush towels because this is going to absorb the most amount of Polymer sealant, plus it's not going to leave scratches in your finish. So make sure you do have an ultra plush, at least something that is new, something that is in really good condition. So my favorite ones for this are going to be the Adams Polishes gray borderless microfiber plush towels, or the Rag Company has microfiber plush towels as well. Both extremely high quality, probably the best two on the market. Otherwise, you're going to want to have something that does have soft fibers to it, something that is not going to scratch the surface. That's the most important. So don't just use an ordinary microfiber towel that you clean your home with. Absolutely not going to be okay. So I've got this blue one here. This is going to be our initial wipe. So we're going to come through, we're going to wipe everything off initially, and then you're going to see here in a second, I'm going to come back with that gray borderless microfiber towel from Adams, and it's going to be a really good second finish. Now, one thing I do like to do, and this is just good for color coordination, is I like to have 2 different colors. So the good thing is, like, if you get the Rag Company and you get Adams towels, you've got a gray towel and then you've got a blue towel. So it just makes it really easy to color code. So you're like, okay, this is my first towel, and I know this color is my second towel. So then, if you get out of organization or something, you're not kind of wondering which one you use, because you do want to have a nice final finish towel that's going to be super soft, super smooth, so you can come back and get anything that you missed. Because although it's not intentional, sometimes when you're doing that initial wipe, it can get tiring and you might miss little spots. So when we do 2 steps, that's just deleting the amount of air that we could have, and it just really helps make sure that we get everything off the boat, because we don't want the client, when we're finished with the project, to come back and see like we missed spots of wax or missed spots of primer on the boat. It just doesn't look good. So when you do both of these steps, you can ensure that your quality is there and that you're doing the best job that you can. Alright, so we've covered a lot of information, almost everything that you need to know to apply a Polymer sealant to your boat effectively. So now let's go ahead and cover everything that you should not do when you're doing this process and everything you should do. So one thing that you do not want to do is add too much product to the pad. So what's going to happen is, over time, that pad is going to get really full of Polymer sealant, and it's going to leave a super thick application on your gel coat if you just keep putting a bunch on the pad every single section. So when you're doing each section, just put a dot or 2 dots on that pad, and you're going to be good to go, guys. That Polymer sealant is going to last very long. You've got a soft pad that's going to transfer onto the gel coat, so make sure you're not putting too much on. A dot or 2 dots every single section is going to be perfect. The second thing you do not want to do is you do not want to run that machine too fast. If you run that machine at a 5 or even at a 6, when you take that machine off of the boat, it'll fling polymer all over your boat. You do not want that to happen, so instead make sure that you are running it medium speed. 4 is going to be perfect on the Rupes. And yeah, when you take that machine off the gel coat, make sure that machine has stopped. So let go of that trigger while your machine is on the gel coat. That's going to eliminate sling, because if you've got a lot of buildup on your pad and you're running that machine, as you take it off the gel coat, it's going to sling polymer all over and it's going to be a mess to wipe up. Plus, you don't want to get that stuff on your vinyl, on your plastics. It's going to make everything a lot more difficult. Here are a few things that you do want to do and make sure you're keeping in mind while you're doing the polymer sealant application to make sure that you're having success. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you are applying the polymer sealant in vertical and horizontal motions or rotations, right, patterns when you can. So if you're on the hull, you want to at least get one of each to make sure you're covering all the pores. That's the key here. We want to make sure the product is in all the pores of the gel coat, and we want to kind of force it in there by getting those extra rotations and patterns. Of course, sometimes on the top side you may not be able to do vertical and horizontal, but make sure you're covering the entire area. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you do have a wax applicator. Although I don't have footage of it on this job, we want to make sure that we have a wax applicator for any spots on the boat that we cannot get with the machine. We want to make sure those areas get hit with a wax applicator because we don't want to miss any spots on the boat. The final thing that you want to do, and the final tip I have for success, is just make sure you're getting the proper drying time on your polymer sealant. So if you are unsure, 30 minutes is always going to be perfect for wiping off the polymer. Like I said, if you do have a new boat or a boat that you are sure is in excellent condition, you can let that polymer sit on that surface longer. You can wait up to 2 hours, and then you can come off and wipe off that polymer sealant, and you're going to be great. Now, temperature does play a role. Heat, sunlight, all that stuff are factors. So, you know, if it is really hot out, 30 minutes at the low end, going to be great. And if it is really cold out, 50, 60 degrees, a few hours is definitely a great idea for your polymer. Do not wax under 50 degrees. That's just going to be ineffective for the boat. So those are the tips, guys. Let's go ahead and jump on to the next part of the process, which is going to be Brightwork. When it comes to Brightwork, all I'm referring to is all the stainless on the boat. So really what it comes down to, I think the most important part is having a good product. So we've got Stark Metal Polish. You know, I've been super impressed by this product from the get-go. You can remove light rust stains. It just does an excellent job at restoring the stainless, and it leaves an awesome shine. So it comes down to the right products. Guys, if you don't know where to start, Stark Metal Polish is perfect for boats. It's made for boats. I haven't really used a whole lot of other brands out there, so that I'm kind of unfamiliar with, but I know when I've used it, it's been excellent, and I've got a lot of compliments on it, and even from any of my team members that are using it, they've really liked this product. So we're going to stick with that, and that's the one I would recommend. Now, when we're doing this process, really it comes down to a 2-towel method, and we don't have to get anything fancy here. In fact, we do not want to have ultra plush microfibers. That is going to be too soft of a towel, and it's not going to give us the proper scrub power that we need to get out any of those light rust stains and really work that polish into the stainless. So, you know, you've got 2 ordinary microfibers. You've got one gonna wipe in the product, gonna kind of do the restoration, and then you've got that second one that's gonna leave that final wipe. Now, I do think it's a little unrealistic to expect to have like a perfectly scratch-free stainless, especially as the boat ages. And you can run a machine, right? You could do a machine polish on the Brightwork, but in my opinion, is it really going to make that big of a difference? And are you really going to be able to save it from scratching in the future? And to me, that's pretty much just not worth it. I think you're going to have those very few clients that may want to pay for something like that, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, you can get a really good shine, a really good feel to your Brightwork just by doing it by hand with a quality metal polish. Let's go ahead and talk about a few situations where it's going to be very difficult to restore stainless. So sometimes, guys, when your stainless gets old, or it's got a lot of salt sitting on it for long periods of time, that'll actually take off the finish of the stainless. So below the stainless is just metal, and that stainless finish can actually be ruined or damaged by salt exposure over time. So sometimes your finish will actually be gone, and you'll have these little bumps, these little bubbles on your stainless. There's nothing you can really do to restore that because that finish is off the boat. It's like saying, your gel coat has come off the fiberglass. You've actually, sanded or buffed through the gel coat. You're not going to be able to fix that with detailing. It needs resprayed. That is the same with the stainless. That'll need to be replaced. So what I like to do is I like to scrub, for about 30 seconds to a minute per section. So I'm going to work like 1 or 2 feet at a time, really give it a good scrub, and then I'm going to wipe it off with that final finished towel. So I do use an ordinary microfiber, and then I've got a little bit higher quality of a microfiber, nothing crazy, but something that's a little nicer, a little softer to give us that final finish. And that's really the best way to go about it. Brightwork is relatively easy to polish out and restore by hand. Sometimes you will run into situations where you've got like heavy rust stains. If you do have heavy rust stains, you're going to want to use something like a rust aid or even a muriatic acid if it's really bad, and that'll get out your rust stains if you cannot get them out with doing it by hand. Another tip that you can do, we're not going to dive super in depth in this part of the video, but you can use a very fine steel wool. That'll help also polish up the stainless. So between the metal polish and the fine steel wool, if you wanted to take a machine to it, you can. I would recommend that you use a mini polisher. So if you haven't checked out the 3-inch Milwaukee mini orbital polisher, that is going to be a great polisher. Actually, that's not an orbital, it's a rotary polisher, but that's going to be perfect if you want to work on your stainless. So you're going to want to get a gray Lake Country pad, put that stark metal polish on the surface, and then you can actually buff it off with the mini machine. That's going to give you a little more of an enhanced shine, a little bit of a better finish if you did want to go that route. I think the biggest thing is just not rushing this process. I feel like some people like to rush this process, do it really fast, but take your time, do this the right way, get out what you can. Like I said, if you do have rust stains that you cannot scrub out with the polish, you're gonna wanna jump to muriatic acid or rust aid, something a little bit more aggressive. And then yeah, all boats have different amounts of stainless. Some have a lot, some don't have as much. When you talk about anodized aluminum, stark metal polish really isn't the best form or the best way to kind of work that type of surface. And really any metal polish isn't really made for anodized aluminum. That stuff, can get also salt exposure, stuff like that kind of hurts the finish on that. So you're going to want to go with something like steel wool, or you can even consider buffing it out. So there are different methods when you talk about anodized aluminum. We're not going to really dive a whole lot into that rabbit hole today as well. But when it comes to, doing the metal polish, another thing you do want to keep in mind is be careful not to get this in your gel coat, because sometimes it can be difficult to wipe off. Try to be careful. Make sure, if you're doing cleats or something that is surrounded by gel coat, just be careful that you're not scrubbing that polish into the gel coat, into your Polymer sealant, because, it will get dirty and it can leave more scratches. Just something to be aware of. I don't think you need to tape it off or anything crazy like that. Just be careful that you're not getting it on the gel coat as much as possible. When it comes to protection, does this product leave a protection? So the thing that I like to say with like a metal polish, this is like the compound and polish of doing your gel coat. So this is the compound, this is the polish. You're going to be able to restore the Brightwork. You're going to be able to kind of restore it, really get it shiny, but it's not really protecting it. So you can go with a protection system. In this detail, this is our tropical detail package. It's our entry-level package. We just polish it up. We don't actually protect it. So, if you did want to protect it, that is a great way to make sure that, you your stainless isn't getting oxidized quicker in the future. It's staying cleaner, it's more easier to maintain. And yes, you can absolutely do that. Ceramic coatings, Jescar Ultralock, ceramic DNA Luminex, all great options. You're gonna wanna stick to nanotechnology, which is a ceramic coating, or polymer sealant. Those are gonna be the best forms of application. Wax, you guys might ask me about like Woody's wax or even like Holonite metal wax. I don't really think wax is the best way to go about it. I would prefer a polymer, an SiO2, a nanotechnology ceramic coating. Those are gonna be better options for protecting your stainless. I know you guys are gonna ask me about water spots. So if you do have water spots on your stainless and the polish does not take them out, you're gonna have to go with something like Stark Venom or even Underdog water spot remover. That's the best option to try to get those water spots to come out. That means your stainless is very oxidized, very faded, and you need more attention there. And then after you do that, guys, you might ask, okay, how do I prevent water spots? Well, you're gonna have to go with a prevention system. So you're gonna have to do protection, whether that's polymer, that's a ceramic coating, DNA Luminex, those are all great options. And then you're gonna have to dry your stainless every time you wash your boat. Make sure you're keeping salt off of it. Salt's gonna create water spots. So all those things are factors when it comes to water spots on your stainless. Now that we've covered all the basics, let's go ahead and talk about what not to do when you're polishing metal and then what to do. So one thing you do not wanna do is you do not wanna get this stuff in your gel coat. So again, you do not wanna get this in gel coat. You do not wanna get this in plastics. This will stain those surfaces. This needs to stay on stainless and only be used for stainless surfaces. Another thing that you do not want to do is you do not want to rush this process. You want to take your time, make sure you're getting everything right, because when you rush it, you're going to miss spots and you're not going to do the best job that you can. A lot of people like to rush this process just because there can be so much stainless on a boat, and it'll take 2, 3, 4 hours to do all this the right way. Now, some things that you do want to do is you want to have 2 towels. So you definitely want to have 1 towel to wipe in, because if you just use 1 towel, you're never going to get a good finish. You want 1 towel to really work in, and then you want a secondary towel to give you a final finish, to wipe off all that polish that you were working into the surface. Another thing that you want to do is you want to make sure you're using the right product. So Stark metal polish, and then if you've got rust, make sure you're removing that, make sure you're removing water stains. Just doing the whole prep process is important, and then doing the polish, and then if you're going to go with a protection, doing that as well. So that's going to wrap up this segment of the video. This is how you do Brightwork, and I hope this was helpful. Now let's jump into plastics. Welcome to the plastics segment of this course. We're going to be covering a lot of information, and I don't really have a whole lot of information on plastics on my channel, so I think this is going to be very valuable to you. Also, there's not a whole lot of this stuff shared in the industry, so this is going to be a very powerful segment to really tune into. So what we're dealing with on this Axopar 37 is we've actually got a special kind of plastic. It's a powder coated plastic. It's a very delicate surface, very hard to restore, and you've got to be very careful when you're cleaning it, because you can damage the surface very quickly. So we're going to be covering things not to do when you're taking care of plastics, especially ones of this type. So some of these higher end boats, these luxury boats, going to have different types of plastics, and it's just very important to understand how to work with them. So one thing you do not want to do, you don't want to get compound, you don't want to get polish in these surfaces, nor do you want to get metal polish, any products really. You don't want to get polymer sealant on this stuff, because it's going to be very hard to get off, and it gets really deep into those pores, and then you're going to have to use a pressure washer to get those out. You've got to be careful when you're doing that. So it makes cleaning so much harder if you're getting the surface very dirty from the get-go. So just be very conscious on making sure that compounds and polishes aren't getting into this type of plastic. The second thing you don't want to do is you don't want to use full strength degreasers on this type of plastic, or it will ruin the finish. So, simple green, purple power, or even super clean, very harsh degreasers that need to be diluted 50-50 to make sure you're not really drying out those plastics, because what happens when you use full strength degreasers, those take all the oils, they really suck all the oils right out of the plastics, make them super dry and like cracky and all sorts of problems there, and it's just going to be very hard to restore if you don't have a super rich product that you're using. So you definitely want to be careful there. Dilute 50-50 on all degreasers, no bleach, nothing harsh can be on that surface. You can use Dawn dish soap, that's going to be okay because you're diluting it in a water bucket, so that'll be okay, but clean it and rinse it off right away. Just really be delicate about it. Now, the final thing that you don't want to do is you do not want to use a magic eraser on this surface. So never do that. A magic eraser is going to take off that finish. It's going to leave smears and smudges, and it will ruin this type of plastic. It'll give it a very bad look. So instead of a nice uniform, clean look, it'll look all smudged up. It'll have spots all over it. So never use a magic eraser on this type of plastic. So these are kind of the things to be aware of and kind of keep an eye out for in the detailing process. Because this type of material was very challenging to work with, we had to find a super rich product to restore this plastic to where it needed to be, because it was quite faded and it needed a lot of oils back into it. So what we did was we tested a few products, right? We tried 303 protectant. That's a very light sort of vinyl protectant or plastic protectant. So I typically kind of fall away from 303 protectant on any details, because that's just better for, you know, weekly or bi-weekly maintenance, and it's not really what I use for details, because I really want to give more pop, more shine. And with 303, it's just a very diluted product. It does work, it's a good product, it's a quality product, but on details I like to go a little further. So after we tried 303, it did not do what we wanted. It just was too light of a product to really get into those pores and really give this plastic a nice shine. So then we went to Adams VRT. So my second go-to is Adams VRT. This comes in a, you know, it's kind of like a liquid form basically, but it's more of like a paste. So you're not really able to spray it. It's a little too thick to spray. So you've got to put it on an applicator pad, and then you've got to rub it into the surface. Now that did a little better than 303, but I still wasn't too impressed, just because the application was going to be hard to do with an applicator. So we finally made it to CarPro Pearl at full strength. So we did 100% CarPro Pearl. This stuff is super rich, and it is a very high quality stuff. So we sprayed it on. The great thing with this is it's a very thick liquid, but you can actually spray it on the surface. So that's what we did. We wiped it in, and that really allowed us to restore the surface and get those oils back in there, and it really just give it a vibrant shine. So, you know, really having a super strong sort of protectant is going to be key in getting this stuff to shine back up. So you might as well toss away 303. Even Adams VRT probably won't work. CarPro Pearl really going to be your best option for anything, and that's why I lean on this product so much, because it just does such a good job. And if you've seen some of the other videos, I always recommend CarPro Pearl on any of your detailing videos where you're not going to actually ceramic coat the surface. Since we talked about what not to clean your plastic with, let's go ahead and talk about what to clean your plastic with. So what we do want to clean it with is, you know, when you got this powder coated plastic or even regular plastic, you want to take a pressure washer to it. So one thing I've learned recently is the only way you can actually get to the pores of plastic and to powder coated plastic is actually taking a pressure washer to it, because that's the only way you can actually clean out the pores. You need that pressured water, whereas, you know, no amount of scrubbing is ever going to get to that place, because those are on a microscopic level that only pressured water is going to be able to get to. So pressure washer, use that, be safe, make sure you're maintaining a safe distance. Don't, you know, hammer down on all the controls and the screens, of course, and everything like that. So just be careful about it. But the key to cleaning and protecting plastic is get those pores cleaned, throw oils on it. That's how you get it protected. You know, when I talked about the magic eraser on powder coated plastic, don't use. You can actually use a magic eraser on normal plastic or vinyl, but like I always say, guys, just be very careful with the magic eraser, because that stuff can strip things fast. It'll strip that top coat of protection right off your vinyl, right off your plastics, and you will see that spot visibly after you protect it. So it's always going to be visible, and once you damage it, it's not going to be fixable. So just make sure you're very careful with that. And yeah, other than that though, you got the pressure washer. You can clean with Dawn dish soap, with degreaser diluted, with a hand mitt, and those are going to be your best options for cleaning plastics. As we've been talking, I've actually been doing the CarPro Pearl application on this dash. So pretty much the whole dash is this powdered type of plastic, and we're just going to spray a couple sprays on. We're going to rub it in really good with one towel. You know, we're going to spray it down a little heavy, really let it kind of absorb in for a few. So that's why I worked that whole dash with the first round. You know, I was able to give it 5 to 10 minutes to kind of absorb as much as possible. And then we're going to want to come back with a secondary towel. So this is going to wipe everything clean. Make sure we've got a nice, consistent, clean looking, crisp finish, because that's going to be key with this type of plastic. So we want to make sure everything's clean, and we really want to take all that excess right off the surface. We do have some normal plastics up here on the dash. We've got our marine radio system. We've got our, our caps on the controls. Those are plastic that are normal. And then we've got the steering wheel. So we're just going to spray the CarPro Pearl on, wipe it in with one rag, and we're going to be good to go on normal plastic. But it's only this powder type plastic that we really want to, make sure we're leaving a crisp finish with, because that other stuff, guys, it's a lot thicker. It's going to be able to absorb a lot more product. And then finally, we've got this silver or this gray hard plastic piece in the front or right below the dash. And the best way to go about this is actually going to be an SiO2. So we've got DNA Regenics being your best bet, or you can go with Start Replenish, but we do not want to use a polymer, and we do not want to use a wax on this type of material. This is a very hard plastic, and we want to stick to an SiO2 for protection purposes. I know we've covered a lot of information in this segment, so let's go ahead and let's do a quick overview one more time of everything not to do and everything to do in this process. So when we're restoring plastics, we do not want to get compound, polish, waxes, sealants into the plastic, because it's going to make it very difficult to clean, and it's also very hard to scrub out. Plus, we can do a lot of damage if we were to scrub it out with something harsh. Another thing, guys, we don't want to use heavy detergents, heavy degreasers. We want to make sure we are diluting everything at least 50 to 50, and we want to make sure we clean it, rinse it off right away. No bleach. Bleach is a no-go for plastics, guys. And then we also want to make sure that we are not using a magic eraser, and if we are, we've got to be very careful. So no magic eraser on powdered plastic, going to leave scuff marks and going to be very noticeable, and you will damage the surface. Also on normal plastics, guys, you can use a magic eraser, but be very careful again, because like I said, you can do a lot of damage, and once that damage is done, it cannot be fixed. So just make sure you're very delicate on all your plastics. Now, a few things that you do want to do is you want to use a pressure washer to clean the pores. These pores on plastic are typically very small, very hard to clean, but when we get pressured water in there, we are able to clean them. Make sure you're careful on controls, make sure you're careful on screens. You do not want to scratch or break screens, and you do not need a super powerful pressure washer. Anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 is going to be plenty for doing your plastics. And then how we do the actual application. So we've got CarPro Pearl, and the reason we've got CarPro Pearl is because it's a very rich product, and it's going to work almost every time. It's very glossy, it's very shiny, and does a very good job at restoring and putting oils back into your plastic. So we're going to spray a couple sprays on, and then we're going to rub it in with one towel. We're going to work that whole dash. Give the product 5 to 10 minutes to really work into the pores, really settle down in there, and then we're going to come back with a secondary towel, a finishing towel, to wipe off the surface, make sure we get all that excess product, and leave a nice crisp and consistent finish, which is going to leave our final finish. And it's really going to wow the customer, because that stuff is amazing, and it really restores those oils and gets the plastic right back where it needs to be. The very hard plastic below the dash, which is silver or gray, that can be coated or protected with DNA Regenics or Start Replenish. We want to stick to an SiO2 based product, and then we'll clean all the glass in front of the dash with Adam's glass cleaner and all the screens on the dash. Let's go ahead and talk about vinyl. When it comes to the Axopar, when it comes to the vinyl, this isn't really what I consider a vinyl. This is more of a synthetic cushion, which a lot of these boats nowadays are starting to get. And you know, basically, how do you clean these things? Well, again, we want to kind of treat them like plastic, so we want to dilute everything. You know, we can dilute dish soap, we can dilute degreasers 50-50. You know, when it comes to actually cleaning, yes, we want to use a hand mitt. We can use a small bristle brush if we want to really get inside some of those crevices, some of those pores, do a little bit of extra cleaning. Yes, we can use a pressure washer again to help us assist with cleaning out those pores and kind of removing some dirt and grime really inside those creases. And then yeah, guys, a magic eraser on this material, not going to do you a whole lot of good because it's a synthetic material, so anything that it takes, it's going to absorb into that material. So for example, you don't want to get compound, you don't want to get polishes, you don't want to get waxes on this stuff, or it's going to do some damage. It's going to really absorb in there, and it's going to be very hard to clean. So we just want to make sure on some of these higher end materials that are harder to clean that we're taking good care of them, because the only thing that we want to absorb into this type of material is our vinyl protectant, or in this case, carpel pearl. One thing that I forgot to mention, so really tune in here guys, on any plastics, any vinyl, any rubber, any materials like that, the wet sanding water, so when you're wet sanding, right, you do not want to get that milky oxidation water on these surfaces. Plastics, vinyl, rubber, going to be very hard to clean, going to be detrimental to these surfaces. It's nearly impossible to clean, guys. It takes forever, it takes time, and you do not want to do that. So when you're wet sanding, just be sure that you're not flinging water all over the boat. I think that's very important, and that's one thing that you really got to be careful with if you're going to wet sand your boat, because like I said guys, it just leaves wet, white, chalky stains in those surfaces, and to me that's one of the hardest things to clean. Now the application process, very easy, very similar to plastics, but with the vinyl you're getting a lot more absorption, or with this cushion, synthetic cushion material, we're getting a lot of absorption. So we can actually just spray the carpel pearl on the seats, wipe it in, we're going to be good. We don't need no second towel. We want to really leave that product down there, let it soak in, let it absorb in. And it's going to really give a good, nice shine to your cushion. So, you know, you always want to make sure you ask the client that, you know, do they want a nice, vibrant, shiny cushion, because that's what this stuff's going to do. So if they want more of a matte look, you're going to need to go with a different product, something like Adam's Matte Finish, right? That's going to be a BRT product, but it's going to be in a matte finish. So you're not going to get that extra shine that you're getting out of carpel pearl or Adam's VRT in general. So you want to make sure you're using products that the clients want, and you know, you want to kind of match the feel that they're hoping to get out of the boat. When it comes to how long does this stuff last, well, carpel pearl typically going to last 1 to 2 months, guys. In a marine environment in Florida, going to be very harsh for any sort of protectant, but it's very good. You've got a water-based product, which means it's not going to come off with the use of water. So I think that's a very important thing. Carpel pearl, again, one of those top tier products that you want to use on your vinyl and your plastics. And finally, we've got rubber. So we've covered plastics, we've covered cushions, and now we're on to rubber. So just like those last two, this is a very similar surface. We've got to be very careful with how we're maintaining it. This definitely is a very interesting design. You don't see rubber on boats like this very often. I think it's a really cool design, but it's got to be a nightmare to maintain, especially down here in South Florida where we're getting a lot of sun and a lot of heat. So the boat's got what it's got, and we got to take care of it and do the best that we can. So again, guys, no heavy degreasers, no bleach. Don't get wet sanding oxidation water on this stuff, going to stain very bad. But the key with this again is a pressure washer 100% with rubber. Pressure wash that stuff out, clean out those pores, and then we want to do a vinyl protectant or a plastic protectant on rubber. So we've got the best one in the game. We've got carpel pearl. And really the only thing you can really put on something like this is going to be carpel pearl, something very rich, or even a ceramic coating. And then once you got that first coat on, you wipe it in really good, let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, let it really absorb in there. And then you're going to want to come back with a second towel, give it that final finish, so we've got a nice, crisp, consistent view, and you know, it's going to look really sharp for the client and for the boat. finally, we're going to coat the rub rail with 303 protectant, so that's going to give it that final shine, that final protection. The rub rail is in good shape, so we want to match the rest of the boat, and this product was going to be perfect. So, you know, with the rub rail, this is a very cool system, not a type of system you see on very many boats, but I love the rub rail system. It's got a really cool design, a really cool feel to it, and it protects the boat greatly. I wish more boats would go to something like this. Now, this is going to wrap up the detail, guys. I hope you enjoyed being here with me through part 1 and part 2. We covered everything. In part 1, we covered the correction, the wet sanding, the buffing, the polishing, and in part 2, we covered all the protection. So the Polymer sealant, we covered the plastic protection, the rubber, and the cushion. So we covered it all, guys. This is our tropical detail package. The only thing added on top of this is we do compartments and we clean out hatch tracks, which was not shown in this video. I hope you enjoyed this style of video, these 1-hour classes. I hope you got a lot of value from them. All that I'm asking from you guys is to leave a like and share this with someone you know who could use this information and this type of video to help them become a better detailer, whether they're a boat owner or a boat detailer. And guys, if you do have questions, if you've got comments, always be sure to drop those below in the comments, and I will see you on the next video. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow along as we come out with a video every single Sunday at 9 a.m. So guys, with that said, peace out. Hope you enjoyed. See you on the next one.